So let's hear from Brian Dold from Olmsted Parks Advocacy, and he is the Director of Planning and Advocacy for the park system.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming out. Again, I'm Brian Dold, the Director of Planning and Advocacy with the Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy. So I'm going to give a little bit of a plan for the evening, just to sort of understand how we're going to spend the next hour and 45 minutes or so. I'm going to start by giving a little context on where we are today, the process to date on this environmental impact study, bit of information about the project that the DOT is proposing to move forward on. Then I'm going to turn it over to our expert guest presenter, Ian Lockwood, for his perspectives on our situation and the possibilities that we have here on our corridor from other examples around the country. Following Ian's presentation, we're going to get into Q&A. First, we're going to start with a conversation about Ian's presentation, specifically what you heard, and then we're going to open up the conversation to several of our cultural partners coming up on stage. And really it's about hearing from you. It's about having a conversation in this room, about sharing information, and giving everyone the confidence to move forward with comments and their perspective on the project. To facilitate with that, hopefully you grabbed an index card and a pencil if you're thinking about a comment, or maybe we'll get inspired to have one. If you need one of those, we're going to have people on either side of the room to hand those out. Once we get into Q&A, there are going to be people with microphones standing on either side, so raise your hand to get the microphone. Now we're going to trust you with these microphones, so don't abuse that power that we're giving you, literally in your hand. Keep the questions succinct, stay on point, don't grandstand. I don't want to be the bad guy, but if I have to cut you off, I'll do my best, yank that microphone away. But we do want to have a good conversation. But again, when you're making those comments, we've got a court reporter here, so state your name, speak clearly. I'm trying to speak clearly now, it's reminding me to do so. But we do want to have a conversation with various perspectives on stage, with the audience. So everyone can't be on stage, but really the idea is that we're going to have a conversation here together. And then we're going to wrap things up at 7:50 with a little bit of a call to action coming from Ian as well as me back. But I don't want to blab on too long, so I'm going to get into just a little bit of that background and then turn it over to Ian. So again, as our assemblyman said, we've been really at this fight with various partners since 1999, calling for a new, better road, better thinking about this stretch of the Creek Corridor and the Olmsted Park system. And we started that process from 2000 to 2005. There was a pretty inclusive process called the Expanded Project Proposal. We ended in 2005, I think, feeling pretty confident about where we were headed. And then we moved into, in 2007, DOT taking on the environmental impact statement. And that was going to move through a few years of preliminary design and study, then get to a final environmental impact statement, a report, then move on to detailed design, a nice stretch of 3 years doing that, and then move into construction. And the early estimates were a $35 to $40 million project. We fast forward 10 years. We're looking at that record of decision on the EIS process the end of this year, then move into right-of-way acquisition and construction next spring. So to just sort of compare those two up here, in 2007, we were going to have a nice preliminary study process with a nice, very conscientious FEIS, then good 3 years of detailed design, and then a construction period. What we ended up getting, as you can see on the bottom there, kind of a ebbs and flows preliminary design and study period that has taken us all the way to today. And maybe a little less celebrated FEIS. My star got a little smaller there. And then you can barely see it. But detailed design is apparently now going to happen in the next 2 months. And then we're going to move forward on construction. But what we've got here is a project that is now 3 times the cost at $110 million, 7 years behind schedule, but now being accelerated to the construction phase. And we just think You know, that this isn't moving how they anticipated. Obviously, we're ending in a place we didn't plan on when we started, and maybe it's time to sort of rethink this entire process. And that's because the project is falling well short of our expectations. So there's a difference you're going to see here between renderings and reality. Oh, there is a project. You know, I don't know how that's going to work. Sorry? The laser pointer is... Yeah. Okay. All right, great. All right. Sorry about that. But so we've got renderings of intersections, and renderings just generally look good. But what we're going to get is an intersection like Niagara Falls Boulevard and Sheridan Drive at Parkside and the 198. We're going to retain the highway character and not remove those traffic calming features. You know, and that's examples, again, they're showing renderings. You know, beautiful, beautiful medians going through here. But what do our medians end up looking like? This is what the medians end up being, Main Street. We know what those look like, people crashing into them. They're talking about pedestrian crossings. Again, that looks lovely. But what they end up being, unfortunately, in these circumstances, is really a physical blight on the landscape, cutting through the middle of the park. The idea is great. The execution is key. And again, I talk about reliving past experiences. Humboldt Parkway, 1958, chopping down tons and tons of trees. Delaware Park at the point of the meadow. All these trees are going. You know, over 400 trees, or around 400 trees. We're still negotiating the exact numbers in this plan, but over 140 trees within Delaware Park, getting the axe as a part of this improvement project. And we're going to learn about that idea of improvement. But again, we're still dividing the parkland. We're still keeping the disconnectivity between the lake and the meadow that occurs at Delaware Avenue in DOT's plan. So we're not getting all those original goals that we had hoped for at the beginning of the process, the vision that we were all aligned behind. And as Sean Ryan again mentioned, the project itself has shrunk as a part of this process, going from really the idea of looking at the entire corridor to now, you know, we really got to cut the project here at Grant, and we really can't do much about this end, and we got to cut the project here at Parkside, and we really can't do much about this end. But at those ends is really where you have to make the tough decisions to provide the opportunity to do something great in the middle, but also those are the communities that need the most help, and we're leaving them behind, and that's just not right. So you can see at the east end, we're disconnecting the park from its community right at Agassiz Circle with these big intersections. We're obviously sort of skipping Main Street, so we're not reconnecting the neighborhoods around Humboldt Parkway. And as we mentioned, we're not setting a vision that's going to eventually get us to the real goal, which is reconnecting our park system back together. We've got to have a vision, and we've got to implement the steps that we need to take. And then as well, over at the west end, you know, we're cutting the project back, and we're really leaving a legacy of infrastructure impeding our progress. We're leaving a legacy of infrastructure that's going to hinder our restoration, and we're leaving a legacy of infrastructure that separates the communities and continues the environmental injustice that we've seen for the last 60 years. And this is our opportunity to change that. And if we don't change it now, we're going to live with it again for another 60 years. So with that in mind, I've obviously said enough. I'm not the expert. I want to bring him up as quickly as possible. So to introduce, Ian Lockwood is a livable transportation engineer from the Tool Design Group. He has a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering and is a Harvard University Loeb Fellow. In the 1990s, Ian was a city transportation planner for West Palm Beach in Florida, where he led some of the first road diet and arterial calming projects in the country. In 1997, he was awarded the Institute of Transportation Engineers Past Presidents Award for his project that preserved Virginia Route 50 as a two-lane rural road instead of converting it into a major freeway. In 2005, Ian helped defend defined the term complete streets, an idea about inclusive design, which has spread across North America. In 2009, his project to replace a major highway project along New Jersey's Route 31 corridor with a smart growth project won the ITE's Project of the Year. He is a proponent of Path is Place, which he'll explain more, which informs all of his work, ranging from designing flexible use spaces to the design of main streets, to downtown revitalization initiatives, to highway removal projects. So all of these goals of increasing social, environmental, and economic health in our cities.